Okay, so we are recording now. I want to thank you all for joining. I am Tanya Watson. I'm a board member with Missouri Community Betterment. I'm also executive director for the Buffalo Area Chamber of Commerce in Buffalo, Missouri. So I'm glad that everybody could join us today. We do have a special guest with us, but I do want to kind of make some rounds around and just kind of introduce everybody. Just let me know your name and what community you're from. We'll start with Paula. But you're muted.
Sorry about that. Hi, my name is Paula McCrae. I'm also a board member with Missouri Community Betterment. I'm from Maysville, Missouri, and excited to see everyone here today. So welcome.
Thank you, Paula. We'll go with Ann Black. Oh, she might have stepped away for a little bit. Shelly Page, are you with us? They might be eating lunch, so. Joanne?
Yes, I'm Joanne Lang with Benton County Economic Development and Cole Camp Community Betterment.
Oh, well, thank you for joining us, Joanne. And then I've got two on the phone. The 816 is Shelly, I think. Is that right? I think Shelly with Plattsburgh. She was on earlier. And then another
that's
one.
Me.
That's you?
I am. Yes, I'm Sue.
Oh, Sue, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm Sue Malone with the city of Plattsburgh. I am a city council person and a lifelong resident and happy to be here.
Well, glad to have you here. And then the other phone must be Shelly Kubla. I think that how you say it. Is that right, Shelly? Phone numbers, it doesn't have names. So I think that's who it was that was joining us. Okay. And well, then we have our speakers. Dani, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dani Prados, and I'm from the community of Granite Falls in this, and I am on the board is here as well.
Okay. All right, thank you, Dani. And then Tamara.
Yes, hi. Struggling with the signal. Something's happening with our school internet right now. So I my phone, but I'm in the basement of our building. So that doesn't always help me. So I hope you can hear me.
Okay. And then Crystal.
Hey, my name is Crystal Johnson. I am the city manager for Granite Falls, and I'm happy to be here this afternoon and look forward to talking about the CARES program. So thank you for inviting me.
Well, thank you all for joining us. We're going to go ahead and get started, and I'm just going to go ahead and turn it over to Dani to start. And then if anybody has any questions, we have a chat box. You can ask questions, put your questions in there, and then that way Dani, Crystal, or Tamara can answer those as they come up. So go ahead, Dani.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having us here today. I was delighted to meet Paula when she was wandering northward collecting stories, and we connected over the use of art as a tool of community building and unity and increasing the spread and reach of a community. So that is how we ended up talking about this and bringing me here today. And again, grateful for Tamara and Crystal joining me as well. So I'm just gonna share a couple of photos and talk very briefly about what we've been up to, and then really open it up for questions so that instead of doing like a big long presentation, we had talked about actually making it more of a conversation. So you can direct the kind of information that you would like to get and share with us. A brief overview is I came here from elsewhere in the country, here being Granite Falls, Minnesota, which is in the southwest corner of the state, about 2.5 hours from the Twin Cities and another 2 hours from Sioux Falls on the other side. And we're in the Minnesota River Valley, which is the homeland of the Dakota peoples, and our sister community about 5 miles away is the Upper Sioux community. So it's a kind of very specific, very special place with a lot of history and a lot going on. And I came here about 1.5 years ago as the first ever city artist in residence, which Tamara and Crystal can talk more about how that program came to be originally. The goal was to work with the city and basically build anything that could engage and bring the community together in partnership with the city, with kind of knowledge and information and a sense of inclusivity. And it was a big experiment. There's a lot of city artists and residence programs around the country. Most of them are in very specific areas, heavily urban areas. And this was the first in a town of under 50,000 people. So I was very lucky that Granite was willing to experiment and then happened to choose me to come here, and I stayed afterwards. And now we are looking at doing another iteration of the program, which I'll get back to in a minute, as well as kind of building on some other creative ways to bring community together and increase commerce and tourism and kind of collaboration and integration across the community. Can I share my screen at the moment? Let's try, shall we?
Yes, you should be able to.
Perfect. Okay. Sorry, it's a little, there we go. So many things happened before I came here, and many will happen, without and around me. But one of the really cool things that I arrived to, because I came in the middle of a pandemic, was this brilliant idea that Tamara had for a COVID safe way to kind of crowdsource an art piece and get the community to work together on a giant thing. So there are these mosaic kits that are available at our little downtown art gallery that you can buy and take home, and we have tutorials online, and you can work on and then complete your own kind of mosaic art piece and sculpture, and anyone can do it. And then you drop it back off at the gallery, and then Tamara, with her incredible skill and relentless ability to make things happen, created the beginning of this huge kind of mosaic mural wall on the flood wall down by the river. And so you can actually become part of the city art by simply bringing something, even if you haven't ever played with mosaics before, and you have your name on the wall, and you get to be part of this larger piece and this larger story. And so that was one of the first things that we found really, or like I found inspired me in terms of bringing people together in kind of a larger sense. Tamara, is there anything you want to chip in about the murals?
Yeah, I mean, the mural project has started a few years back from another project that we were involved with the city as well. And that's when it first really made myself aware that doing those type of projects not only involved just the local people in Granite, but also surrounding areas that would come and either want to participate in it or just go check it out. And it started blossoming other art opportunities just because of a large mural project that was kind of sponsored by the city. So it was interesting to see that whole dynamic change and grow, and it continues to grow. So we're hoping that for years to come, you'll every time you come to Granite Falls, you'll see a new piece or new things happening with the flood wall. We have a large flood wall, so that's what this work is being done on.
Great. And yes, that led to actually one of our next public art projects, where we both worked very heavily with the city, and this was another kind of brilliant city-led inspiration. The whole idea behind a lot of the work that we do is how can we cross as many maybe traditional divides, or how can we bring as many different parts of the community together? And so this was part of, I know Paula wanted us to talk about the Crosswalks project. So it started off as this idea to repaint one city crosswalk as a street mural, to experiment with public safety, to see if we could increase pedestrian traffic, bring more people downtown, get more people walking and active. And it actually became a partnership between the city, the Arts Council, and a public health, countryside public health initiative. So it's a public health program and an art program and a city beautification project. And as it's turned out, a pretty hefty tourism draw. So we ended up painting 20 different crosswalks around the community, 8 on our downtown Main Street and 12 around the schools. And so it became a collaboration between professional artists and student artists, all under one unifying theme of storytelling. And Tamara was the orchestrator behind a lot of the student work, and indeed did quite a bit of the cleanup herself in painting as the students got tired during our late spring days. And this was kind of, maybe Crystal, you can speak a little bit about, this was a huge kind of unprecedented community-wide public visible art piece that I think led to a lot more participation, excitement, et cetera, in collaboration and using art as a tool of community building.
Yes, that's exactly right. And I will add to, with all these exciting things going on in our community, one thing that I'd share I think is really important, especially when we first had Dani as a first city artist in resident, is a little bit of education. So informing elected officials, what we're doing, what this program's about, sharing examples from other cities of what artists have done. I would add that's very important. And now with that education component out of the way, moving forward, doing the crosswalks and actually seeing the art and seeing the impact, the positive impact that it had in the community, really helped create this drive for more art, more community engagement, more involvement. And we are seeing individuals who are not previously as much engaged in the community be more active as part of these projects. And that was really a big positive component as part of all these projects.
Thank you. Yeah, and one last thing, and then I'll speak a little bit, and then we'll open it up. Is we did a series of makers markets. I think there was a kind of a rough draft of this that occurred a couple of years ago, and so with the kind of excitement from the crosswalks, we used our opening ceremony of the crosswalks in the beginning of summer to try this new makers market, very specifically a combination of a farmer's market and an artisan market. But if you have some agency in the creation of something, so really you make it, you grow it, you beat it, you cook it, you bake it, you craft it, you paint it, you're welcome to join for a very small fee and be a vendor. And we had live music. And we're doing this again this year. So it's the first Thursday of every month in the summer. And this culminated in a giant festival called Squid Fest, which I'll get back to. And these became ongoing initiatives that the community kind of embraced. So it was really working with a combination of physical public art, and you can see the beginning of some of the other murals here in this photo, and events that had an experience that many people could share and create a memory from and reference when we were talking about public art and community. And that is, I'm going to stop screen sharing at the moment. But really, what was extraordinary about all of this and what it seems to have in common is the more we do, the more becomes available. There isn't a limited number of resources. The more that we create together, the more kind of comes our way. When I started, because I am still very new to the community and was lucky to be welcomed, there wasn't nearly as much kind of cross-community conversation, collaboration. And even just as we've emerged from COVID, I think there's a really big hunger for community and a recognition of its necessity and place in our lives, and art as a tool to do that. but it also kind of opens up maybe in a different way what we can do as collaborations between organizations and community members. And the first most important thing I think that the Community Artist in Residence program allows for, and this is something that in this next iteration, we're actually going to be kind of designing a new version of the program and making it open source. So we're really interested, one of the reasons we wanted to speak today is to get thoughts and ideas about what you're interested in, how this relates to the community betterment work that you're doing, and how we can share information and resources across the country, across states, across communities, to kind of just work together and see what works. So we'll be sharing everything that we learn as we go, as we shift this program. But what the biggest gift I would say is that it allows, it not just allows, it kind of enforces this structure for a visiting artist to come into a community and listen and learn, and really become part of the community. And so sometimes that like amorphous relational structures, the spider web, informal quality of a community, the way that things are connected, getting a different vision of that, having someone whose job it is to listen and learn from that, and then build new connections or forge stronger versions of what's there, and that being the job, and using art and creative practices to do that, and just watching, you know, the growth and the benefits that come in. Tamara or Crystal, anything you want to add before we open up for questions to direct?
No,
Well,
been a great.
go ahead.
Bring it on, Paula.
I was just gonna say, one thing you guys might share, just because you're outside of Missouri, is just a little bit about the size of your community. I know so many of our communities are small rural communities, and what you're doing just looks so fabulous. It's easy to think you could be, you know, a larger urban area. So it just including that piece, I think, might be of interest to everyone.
Crystal?
Sure. So Granite Falls is just under 3,000 in population. We are located right on the intersection of two major highway corridors of Highway 212 and 23. So I will add that we do get a lot of traffic that comes through the community. But yeah, we are a smaller rural community in Southwest Minnesota, and yeah, we're having fun with doing all these art projects and engaging the community and drawing more people to our community. Also, we're observing that as well as a benefit of doing this type of work. And yeah, I'm happy to answer any other specific questions, but I think that's more of what you were looking for.
One of the things that Tamara said when I first arrived to this small community, and we were talking about, you know, how do you get started? And especially literally in like the height of quarantine in a new place as an outsider, whose job it is to like bring community together when you're not allowed to physically inhabit space, was, well, you know, one of the most beautiful things about living in a smaller community is you can do so much more with so much less. She's famous for saying, if you can dream it, you can do it. You know, you can do so much with just one person and a lot of gumption. And that's because our incredible city council and our city manager here and the city department that I was able to work with are so open and welcoming, especially as we prove, you know, more and more success, just being open to things. And if you're willing to put the work in, you can accomplish so much with very little. And the more you do, the more people will show up to help. More questions?
I think it was kind of interesting also to hear that you're getting visitors from quite an array of places because of the work that you are doing. So you might be able to share a little bit about how what you have done has impacted that.
Sure. Go ahead, Crystal.
Yeah, so that's exactly correct. And like I shared earlier, it's been very interesting for me personally, just as an example, if I go on a somewhere else in the state, I've been in the metro area and people have found out I'm from Granite Falls and they're like, oh, we're seeing all these art projects and what are you guys doing in that community? And it's been very interesting to have people approach you and learn and discover that word has gotten through all over the state of what Granite Falls is doing, and asking a lot of questions and visiting in our community. And of course, visitors are helping our local Main Street businesses, and we're seeing that impact, especially with having some of these events such as Squid Fest and the Makers Market too. We're seeing visitors from all over the state and region, not just even the state, but from out of state, that are visiting our community. And we continue to see just the local impact with sales and help supporting local area businesses. So it's been wonderful for our community.
So let me ask, did you guys do any advertising that you guys were doing this program, and how far of a reach did you go out with advertising?
We did a little bit of advertising, but there was just a lot of interest. Just word kept spreading, and we found ourselves in various newspapers and people contacting us when you do news articles. So we did do a little bit, but the news in itself kind of just naturally spread, which was really nice. And it obviously overall helped our community by that word continuing to spread around.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna add, just because it was a visual art, there's a lot of social media. People would go and take pictures for a little drive through, and then they would, and then that just kept spreading. But when I was there working, I mean, that was from the very beginning, where people would come and I ask them, questions as they're watching the mural happen. And so where are you from and all this? And it could be Minneapolis, Sioux Falls, Litchfield, all around the surrounding area. And so what brings you to Granite Falls? Oh, we're checking out what you're doing here and what else you got going. And that's what that light bulb went off, that public art and doing things in a community, whether it's small or not, really do make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, that you can do so much with so little. The power of bringing so many people together from different parts of the community, right? If you bring 10 people together and they each tell 5 different friends, that's 50 people. In a town of 3,000, that's actually, it's smaller than that. That's a big deal. And to have more and more people show up and new people show up, and just that word to keep spreading, and to constantly expand who we're working with. There's an amazing living at home nursing program here in town. And we've been talking about trying to do more intergenerational programming, trying to do more youth outreach. And so by reaching out to all of these different parts of the community, it just brings more people, and they bring more people. And you can get a lot more free press when you're doing things like that, right? Because it's a great story, and it's all about telling the story of the community, telling the story of the project. And so the promotion on that end does seem to happen kind of naturally in ways we can't predict. And then the more people come, the more other advertising becomes available, right? We have an incredibly active convention and visitors bureau. And so the more events we have, the more they can promote the town and bring more people in. And the more diversity of events, the more people come. So it really is almost like a self-filling well. You're kind of building your own resources as you go. Whatever you put out really comes back to you, I think, many-fold.
Well, that's awesome. Word of mouth, as they always say, is the best advertiser. So,
Totally.
and I think more so when you have something visual like that, it's very stunning to see those murals. So let me ask, I don't know who to answer this question, but how would one of our communities, if they wanted to start this kind of program, how would they go about doing that?
Well, that's a great question. And that's one of the things we're figuring out right now. I think there's a lot of different ways of doing any version of the thing. And we're embarking on kind of a slightly, the first iteration was created, a lot of work was put into it, and it was ideated and got off the ground by this third-party nonprofit. And so now our local arts council is kind of taking ownership of the program for a new iteration to try something just a little bit different, a little bit more locally rooted, and try and work with as many different parts of the community as possible. So as we go, we're literally coming up on the end of our fundraising month here, May 1st. If we reach our goal, and I'm fairly confident we will, we'll actually be launching our next artist in residence program, a community artist in residence program, nationally. So we'll be looking for a new artist to come for a shorter period. My original contract was a 1 year. We'll be bringing in artists for 3 months and using that as a test balloon to actually see what works. And part of the project is actually creating this open source program design and documenting all of the community interactions, all of what works and what didn't. And here's where you can look for national grant resources. Here's where we found our local resources. Here's an idea you might not have thought of in terms of fundraising. How can this program be replicated in your area? And then what can you learn and share back with us? And trying to kind of build out a network of interested communities. So I'm hoping that we'll have more answers for what works, but we'll also maybe inspire new ideas in areas in Missouri and other places that both can benefit, but also expand the ideas of what's possible. And that'll be really coming up very quickly. So I'll send information about how to follow up on that. And I would love for anyone interested to stay in contact and stay involved. Because it really is about sharing and learning and growing all together and kind of being open with those resources.
Well, that's awesome. So if you guys don't mind, if you want to put your contact information in the chat, that way anybody can reach out to you, and then also we'll keep it in and share that as well. Does anybody have any questions?
I was going to say one more thing about the promotion and outreach. And one of the reasons why I think having artists working together is so exciting is you heard Crystal mention Squid Fest a couple of times. It's really fun to do something different and then watch how, you know, you're always going to get pushback, I think, in any community when you try something new. But the more it percolates and the more it authentically comes from a place of unity and sharing and kindness and openness, the more it kind of grows. And so, you know, instead of doing something traditional or things that have been tried before, I think what artists are really good at are diving into the unusual and finding a hook that really unites us all and maybe that tickles us a little bit and makes us think a little bit. You know, we created this new annual festival called Squid Fest. We're on a river. And there's a whole story that you're welcome to ask about our newest neighbor, our river squid Todd, who may or may not have swum up from the Mississippi or accidentally been dumped out of an exotic saltwater tank and made its home in the downtown riverbed because it couldn't get over the dam and enjoyed messing with the pelicans and eating the chum. And so lives with us now and has become this kind of strange grassroots unofficial town mascot. And you would not believe the proliferation in a prairie community of squid memorabilia around town. It's just been extraordinary. And I think that's a great example of, you know, it's seemingly, I think what art does is it creates these containers that are seemingly safe for us to join together and share experiences and humanize each other and make new connections, and then come away with something startling or something memorable that inspires us to think a little bit differently or try something new.
That's cool.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
My name is Sue, and I'm from a community of about 2,400 people. And we have a very active artist coalition group in our community that is beginning to do some really fun things. However, and they have talked about the murals across the crosswalks, you know, but our problem with that is that our infrastructure is under the streets. And did we want to spend the time and the money to put art across a street that was going to be dug up? You know, so that was one of our concerns. And I wondered if anybody else had those kind of problems and how they handled that situation.
Well, some art is more temporary and some art is more, you know, lasting for 10 years, maybe 20 years, depending on. Our crosswalks will have to be repainted again this. So we kind of knew that. And that our main thing is freeze thaw, gravel, salt, constantly beating on it, just tearing it up. Without
And that was another concern.
Yeah. So we have that, but it is more temporary. And so it's like, it's kind of an excitement about change will be the same. What's happening with that? And then you have the mural project where it's pretty stable on the wall and it stays on without any issue, but yet we're still adding and changing to that as well. So
Right.
taking a look at art, getting people talking about it, getting them to talk about what is art, and does it always have to be permanent to be art?
Absolutely. And in fact, so we started the Crosswalks project just last year. We had hoped the paint would last 2 years, but as Tamara said, Minnesota winters and that salt. So we are going to have to redo them this year, but we're already talking about, well, gosh, what about next year? Maybe we should do a whole new batch of crosswalks. And even this year, actually, the biggest crosswalk is our kind of informal town square, which is actually 4 crosswalks in the square in the center, which was that bigger picture that I showed. Part of that is going to be torn up for city construction and road maintenance. Actually this spring. And so we were able to go back to the artist and say, because Crystal brilliantly ahead of time went, you know, what is that going to do for us? Instead of making that a detriment, what about using that as an opportunity? Well, how can we amend the design? How does the artist, the original artist, want to amend the design to account for this kind of chunk being taken out? Do you want to change the design to make a commentary on the necessity of road maintenance, or how things always change, or how growth comes out of unexpected places? I think there's always an opportunity, instead of looking at something as, oh no, it's not what it was before. Well, how can we do something new and cool with that again gets people talking, gets people excited? Last year we had just the artists and students painting with maybe a couple of extra volunteers, and this year we've already had, you know, a lot of hands raised. Oh, do you need help? We're going to try to do a big community painting weekend. So even just that change and maintenance can be kind of a unifying event.
That's cool. Well, I'm
Thank you.
glad that Sue had asked that, because I was curious too, is like, how long are these going to last, and what kind of paint were you using to make these? Because they're so beautiful, and you hate to see, you know, it's going to fade away when you hate to see that. But I didn't think of the opportunity to have more done later. So that that was good to hear that there's, you know, or you're already thinking about what you can do next. So.
And we did use road paint. We did a bunch of research, as Crystal said. We looked at the proper, I mean, we used the best road paint you can get. And it's amazing that you could mix it the way you do, you know, acrylics. You saw some of those murals, but it does disappear. And maybe looking at that not as, like, as Tamara said, not all art is meant to be permanent. And yes, it costs money to upkeep. And if you want to do a whole new artist call, artist fees and all of that, but then you compare that to the amount of tourism and commerce it brings to the community and to the downtown area, and all the kind of harder to measure ways that it brought people together and created new community betterment projects who met while volunteering together on, you know, on a painting project. So it's maybe learning to look at value of art a little bit differently, because traditionally it's really hard to measure that kind of thing.
Well, I also like too that you had some student art, which is kind of neat to, you'll see sometimes different communities will do different things, but you don't hear a lot about the student art. So that was a neat thing. So I guess then if a community couldn't afford to bring in a paid artist, then, why not have your art students do something cool? That would be, a great opportunity to showcase what your students are doing in your community. So that's another good thing to look at too, if you can't afford to bring an artist in. I know, every school has art class, right? So it's got to be a great opportunity to bring in some students to do something. Does anybody else have any questions or comments or anything? Thank you. You're muted, Paula.
Speaking of students, I'm going to have to go. Sorry about that. My sixth graders have arrived. So it was nice chatting with you. Happy to chat anytime again. And I wish you the best of luck with any future endeavors. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye. Go ahead, Paula.
Just kind of another similar idea that my family ended up involved in. My son had his artwork painted on a city plow. So they kind of had a theme, the Yetis are coming, and painted those on the city plow. So admittedly, that was really just going to be for one winter. And then next year they prime them and do that again. But there was one other thing that sort of came to me as I was listening to our friends from Minnesota share. They do have a pretty incredible space where they have been able to feature some emerging artist artwork and some things like that. So I don't know if one of you want to share just a little bit about that also, but the way you're offering classes and featuring some of those students' pieces, I thought was pretty exciting.
Thanks. Yeah, again, diversity. And so the Arts Council was incredibly fortunate that a number of organizations in town, actually, this was a great example of collaboration, came together to save and preserve this historic building, which was then kind of given to the Arts Council to run as a gallery space, and now also a gift shop. And then over the last year, there was a secondary room that was used as a classroom to take various types of classes. We'll offer, whatever artists are available to do that people are interested in taking. But when it wasn't a classroom or a meeting space, was sitting there unused. And, the more that we unearth different opportunities for young artists, especially, that we thought, gosh, why don't we turn this into a second gallery? And so we created this emerging artist gallery for younger artists, for artists experimenting in new mediums, and at any age and any type. And that's just been a proliferation that has brought new people to the gallery, new ideas to the gallery. Our first artist was 6 when he showed. He's actually a ridiculous prodigy, though. He is from Upper Sioux, and his art is kind of a combination of like his obsession with ninjas and also his ancestral dreams and traditional stories. And takes it very seriously and is now showing in 2 galleries in Minneapolis, by the way. So we are finding the cutting edge of the next generation. But that really brought a new idea of more youth programming. We actually since then have had 3 student shows. There's an immersive installation experience that we're building in there right now. And as you know, there's sometimes grant funding available for student and educational programs. We've been able to bring in artists to work with the students and been able to gift them with this space and kind of open canvas to create something new and different. And again, that brings more people, more families into town and kind of more kind of cross-pollinating. So again, a self-propagating system. The more new things you bring in, the more comes out. We're actually having our first international art show in Granite Falls this coming summer.
So you had mentioned having a couple different Native American tribes in your area. Are you seeing that influence a lot of your art that is being done in the murals and that kind of, how is that changing the perspective for people.
Crystal, do you want to take that one, or should I keep ranting?
I think you're doing great if you, but I can answer that a little bit. We certainly we view the Upper Sioux community as our neighbors, and we certainly view them as a collaborative regional partner, and we want them involved in these projects. And I think through the Artist in Residency program, we have been able to connect more with our neighbors and have them more involved in these type of projects, and seeing them participate more, and building a stronger relationship between the city and the tribal community. And I think that's, I want to continue to see that moving forward, and continue working with them. And they have such wonderful artists in their community as well, and keep them working with them, and having those even moving forward, more projects as completed working with them. Sorry, I'm getting a little fumbled with my words here, but I think you know what I'm trying to say. So
I think you're doing great. But yeah, exactly. And again, that proliferation, every successful project kind of inspires maybe two potential new ones, and every successful kind of relationship, you meet more, and again, having that kind of connection building, and that listening and learning as not as part of the process itself, as part of the valued process, as opposed to, oh, if you could do this on the side, and then the goal is the art piece. Really, the relationship building is the goal, and art is just the medium to do it.
Absolutely.
That's, for lack of a better word, cool, because you don't think about how art affects people we know it's good for your brain, music is good for your brain, but I think people don't really think about how much that really affects people. I did want to ask a question. You had showed a picture of one of the murals with the Mandela things in there. How many artists participated in that, and how did that work?
So that was one of the mosaic walls. So there, I think, are maybe 40 different large circular mosaics that were created by 40 community members who each bought a mosaic kit, took it home, worked on it alone or with a family. We had these like quarantine bubble groups who would get together for cocktails and mosaic building once a week. And at the end of the winter had these finished mosaics that they turned back into the gallery. And then largely Tamara, with help, because she's such a phenomenal and fast mural painter, and was able to like fix the mosaics to the wall and then paint around them with the names of each community member. So that's what I mean, where 40 different people can come to that wall and see their work part of this larger mural, even if they've never played with tiles before.
And is that ongoing as well? Because I think when I was there, I remember that I could see beyond that mural that you shared, there was kind of another piece where some of them had been attached, and you could tell that it was this sort of emerging art piece in the community, which is just exciting. And I just remember looking at those mosaics and thinking, well, hey, my son or my daughter could do this, and how exciting would that be for them to feel a part of something they've done in the community.
Exactly. And absolutely. Yeah. I think we've got maybe 30 more. We're waiting for warm weather. So it's a spring and summer thing. But then, fall and winter is all the mosaic building time. So it's actually a great annual. And we have, more and more walls. There's as people are starting to understand the gallery as more of a meeting space, someone actually just requested to have their 80th birthday party there, and demanded 5 mosaic kits be available for the party. So it's absolutely a current and ongoing thing.
Well, that's cool. And then I did want to ask a little bit, because you guys had mentioned Squid Fest a little bit. So can you talk a little bit more about that? And it's kind of more artist based. So how does that work?
Crystal, do you want to give a more formal intro, and then I can take the squiddy?
Sure. So this was a brilliant idea that Dani proposed initially as part of the first City Artist in Residency program. And from there, it turned into a collaborative effort with a number of individuals in the community, and forming a committee and planning. And it was a really, truly wonderful experience. Again, Dani talked before about trying new things and thinking outside of the box. And this program creates kind of a medium for being able to do that. And this is an example of that. And it really just, it was different for the community. There was a lot of questions at first, but overall, I feel the Squid Fest was very successful. We had a number of vendors involved, music involved, food, individuals selling some crafts and different things. And you know, the theme itself is Squid Fest is you know, unique in itself, and that drew a lot of attention and a lot of conversation. And you know, I'll turn it back over to Dani to talk maybe some more details from there, but that's kind of how initially, at least, it started.
Yeah, it was looking at kind of a culmination of the original residency. What's a really large kind of deliverable we can give to the community? We're doing all these visual pieces. Can we create an experience for us to share as well? And centering that in the idea that everyone is an artist, that our art form is whatever we put passion and time into. So the tagline of the festival is, what is your art and our art? What is the art of community? It takes all of us doing all of our different things. And so this year it's even bigger and better. And now there's a 5K because a community member thought that was something he was excited and passionate about. And the idea is to be open to everything. So it's literally anything that you are passionate about, is what your art and what you bring to the community. And every vendor can sign up for a booth to share what their art is, whether it's things to sell or whether it's, we had a station for the dog park last year, getting people information about trying to put together a dog park and asking if they wanted to join that volunteer committee. We had a city plan, a 10-year comprehensive plan that used that as a venue to get feedback from the community. And that was highly successful by creating these interactive pieces. We had a stone soup, actual batch of stone soup that we used as a food shelf donation that was wildly successful. So that umbrella of whatever you're passionate about in a small community, it's a huge part of our fabric. So show up and share it. Remind everybody what you are, what you do, what you love. What is your art? And much like the many tentacles of a squid, you can do it in a fun and surprising way.
That's very interesting and cool that you guys found something unique to have for your community. So we have about 5 minutes left. Does anybody else have any questions or anything before we start wrapping up? Feel free to unmute and talk. Okay, well, if not, I did see in the chat that Crystal and Dani both put their emails in there. Do you guys have a website as well that goes to this?
Sorry, yes, I was typing it in the chat.
No, that's fine.
The CARE program itself, Community Artist in Residence program itself, will have its own website once the program gets going. For now, it has a page on our Arts Council website.
Okay.
By the way, one of the things that this led to, on a totally separate note, is we created a community calendar for the first time to have a place to share all of the different. So again, that idea, the tentacles, the connection, making as much, what's good for one is good for all. What's good for all is good for everybody. But this website will bring you to our Arts Council, has a lot of information on the program and mosaics and things in general in the arts. And then probably starting in June, we'll be launching a care website specifically that'll also have a page for sharing with other communities and feedback and that kind of stuff. So please stay tuned.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you guys sharing that information with us and joining us today. Their information is in the chat, and we will keep that and share that as well in the newsletter again. If anybody has any questions, I'm sure you ladies are open to having them contacting you directly and just picking your brain about how they can bring arts to their community in this unique way.
And we'd love to pick yours and share as well. We'd love to share information.
We would love to have that in the sharing. And I hope everybody enjoyed this conversation. We did record it, so it will be on our website as soon as it's processed and we get it to our webmaster, but it will be up there. So thank you, ladies, again. We appreciate it. And everybody that joined us today. We do have our May Lunch and Learn will be on May 18th at noon, and our speaker will be Mr. Andrew McCrae. Some of you may know him as Paula's husband. He's going to talk to us a little bit about the Community Foundation up in his area and how that can be beneficial for the communities across the state. There are several different branches of that. So that will be our topic for May. So I hope you guys will join us for that. And thank you, ladies, again, Dani and Crystal, and then Tamara. Did I say it right, Tamara? Okay, joined us today. We appreciate your time and thank you so much. And thank you everybody for joining us, and we will talk to you guys next month then.
Thank you all so much for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you,
Everyone.
Bye.